Hi all, welcome back to the channel. So in this number 20, as part of our AI learning, what we're basically going to do is we're going to look at this AI generative pre-trained transformer. And you may, recognize this GPT from ChatGPT, for example. And basically what this is, it's like a kind of baby GPT, in that it learns to generate text using the actual kind of Python script, and then it kind of invokes the kind of model training and then gives the final output to the user. So it's not going to be extensive. It really is an application just for learning purposes, on to see how you can actually kind of train a little bit of you know text that will actually learn what it actually should be, the next letter in the sequence of the sentence or phrase. So what I've kind of done here is I've set up a small kind of ChatGPT here to sort of say, well, when I actually take the application and I put it into ChatGPT here, so I take the Python script that I've written using ChatGPT, because again, I'm not an expert in data science by any means, so I'm kind of trying to learn kind of, with the rest of you guys. And I just kind of asked ChatGPT to actually explain this application to me. So, what it sort of says is it builds a character level GPT. So predicts the next character given the previous characters. So that's kind of, important that it trains it to predict the next character given the previous character. So, it really is kind of like a ChatGPT, but just on a really, really kind of small baby level. It uses transformers, and it generates new text after training. So it's not meant to be, useful in production. But I've kind of gone down here and I've taken the script here and I put the script in here, and you can sort of see that it's kind of, breaking down everything, so like for example, the model learns, if it's hello world, it predicts then the D. If it's attention, it predicts that it's a no. So that's exactly what's actually kind of happening here in the whole application here. So, you can kind of go down here and kind of read all of this, yourself. I'll kind of upload this also, this chat to the repository as well. But it's just a kind of way of actually kind of, um understanding, like self-attention here, the core GPT idea. So this is the heart of GPT, where it basically says, each character asks which previous character was relevant to me, assigns attention weight, and combines information from the past. So it's learning how to actually kind of output the next character, and then finally you'll kind of end up with an actual phrase. There's a lot of kind of things here, related to data science, that I won't kind of go into, here, but um, for itself, you can kind of adjust these configurations and parameters yourself and kind of try them out, and, go into all of these kind of specific kind of words and terminologies that's kind of being discussed here. But if I kind of come over to my Visual Studio Code, so I have a number 20 here. I already have a virtual environment set up here. This little kind of text here is where we're basically kind of, learning or teaching the model to kind of, learn how to kind of output this kind of, text here itself. And as you sort of see, there's a few kind of, basic encoding and decoding functions here that are kind of useful. And then, it'll kind of tell you, well, the character size is this, so the block size should be that, the block size should be this. Um, you know, how to kind of train faster, what these kind of parameters mean. Um, you can train it longer. So you can kind of, you obviously, I'm using GPU here. I mean, I'm not going to any advanced system here. I'm using this on my Mac here. So it's never going to be kind of, huge by any means, but it just kind of goes to show you the type of kind of code here that, is involved, and the mathematics that are involved in this kind of you know, training of actual words, phrases, images, songs, anything that kind of, needs to be kind of trained into these kind of massive models. And these are kind of, doing the actual, kind of hard work for you, so that you don't actually have to kind of train your models yourself. But this is just a kind of a little kind of nice little exercise to kind of finish off the year on. And you can sort of see here, it kind of outputs and uses a torch sensor to actually do the kind of training and pick up the device and kind of generate the model, then using kind of that kind of context from the actual torch sensor. So it's allowing us to kind of follow through a few of the kind of basic steps that a real you know GPT would actually kind of follow, but just on a much kind of smaller scale. And if you're going to look down into the actual output here, you can sort of see that I'm running this mini GPT here. It doesn't have a module named numpty, but I'm not actually kind of using that. But you can sort of see here that it's picking up all the actual kind of steps here, in the sense where it's looking back through the actual kind of text, and it's trying its best to kind of train the model here on the text that's been provided, and there will be kind of a little bit of kind of loss here, but you can kind of adjust these figures above to kind of improve your loss rate, and then kind of at the end of the you know training here, it kind of just kind of outputs your what it's kind of learned. So what I've kind of learned as well is that you can actually kind of define how much of the model you wanted to learn, so how much the model will actually kind of understand kind of going forward, and then it'll actually kind of spit out a few kind of extra kind of characters and things here that are actually part of the original text, but that's just basically because it's like a kind of old C plus plus kind of type of scenario, but there's a kind of buffer overflow, so it's kind of too many texts within the actual trained response. So but it's kind of fun to actually sort of see how this kind of does it, that picking up the kind of the text using PyTorch, going through the actual text that you've kind of provided, and then just kind of completing every kind of step to kind of get your model trained, and then at the end of the day you're going back into that model and you're kind of checking out to sort of see how much it actually kind of learned that text that you've actually kind of provided. So it was a kind of fun one. It's not massively big, not a massively kind of big project, but this one here is just the mini GPT advanced. It does the same really at the core, but it just does it kind of maybe in a kind of more of a kind of scientific way previously, and kind of increases the kind of the configuration of these kind of types of kind of variables here. So at the end of the day, I'm going to kind of check both in, and then you can kind of adjust both um, of the actual scripts to your kind of needs. But again, it's just it's just trying out these kind of things, like Torch has this kind of a optim. You can sort of see um for optimization here. So this one advanced uses this kind of optimization here. Um, it takes in the kind of the model parameters and the learning rate, and starts kind of stepping through them, and then starts kind of adjusting the kind of the weight loss and all this kind of sort of stuff here. Um, and it'll also kind of start from a specific point of view in the actual kind of text itself, so that um it knows when the actual starting text is, so that it doesn't kind of repeat itself again. And you can sort of see here um there's kind of the sampling on the kind of temperatures here, there's decoding here. Again, it's just a way to kind of play around, so that you can actually run this on your Mac. You can play around with it, play around the configuration. I just have a simple kind of text that's kind of passed in, like hello world, this is a tiny GPT model for a demo, um and it's a fun experiment, so just allows you to kind of try these things out, and see if um training models for the specifics, they are complex and I mean that's why data science itself is a whole um let's sort of say branch of science in itself, because it takes an awful lot of work and patience as well, to be honest, to actually kind of get these kind of configurations correct and what you want them to be. So but it just kind of proves a point that you could actually kind of have some text, train a model, and then the model can actually kind of just, return that information back to you. I mean, if you were to kind of look at this in your own kind of company, to sort of see would this be something that you could actually kind of use down the line. That's the only reason I kind of did it, just to sort of see if this was something um we'd kind of like to use ourselves. So I'll check in those code, and you can, change and update and modify as you kind of need here, and then go into each of specifics if you really kind of have an interest in improving these kind of scripts or using them as a kind of base. Okay, thank you.